Sorry.
Sich fürs Intro.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Motionary Tech Review channel. I hope all of you had a successful start in the new year. We at Motionary certainly did, because we moved our office. We are now in a shared office space with different creatives, and for the past month we really enjoyed it here. It's always exciting to talk to other creatives with different experiences and different jobs. Sorry in advance if there's some noise in the background. Okay, let's talk about the Greyjoy 35mm. Greyjoy lenses are one of the best bang for the buck anamorphic lenses you can currently buy. With the addition of the new 85mm that will be released on the 13th of February, they got a good range of focal length in their selection. So we thought, let's compare the Greyjoy Anamorphic 35 to a more expensive anamorphic lens. We chose the Atlas Orion 32mm, which is about 7 times the price of a single Greyjoy lens, and it has a similar focal length. The Greyjoy 35mm was released in September 2022. When we ordered the lens, we couldn't choose the color of the lens flare. However, the lens has little to no lens flare, so you will have a much more clear and clean image when you're shooting into direct light. The lens covers a 4x3 full-frame sensor and is available for almost every mount. The mirrorless version for RF, E, L and MFT look a little bit different than the PL and EF mount. Unlike the 50mm, the back part of the 35 doesn't stick out that much, and because of that, the following cameras are compatible with the EF mount: the Zcam E2 with built-in filters, the Mevo LF, the Blackmagic 6K and the 6K Pro, and the Blackmagic 6K Ursa Mini Pro, the Red Monstro 8K, Canon SLR cameras, Canon EF mount Cine cameras, compatible with Canon original EF and RF adapter ring. Speed boosters and adapters with built-in filters or glass elements are not compatible. The Greyjoy 35mm has an aperture range from 2.9 to 22, and the aperture ring rotation is 99 degrees. The closest focus distance is about 70 centimeters, and the focus scale rotation is 246 degrees. It uses a 82mm filter thread size, and the outer diameter for the matte box is 85mm, and the lens has a squeeze factor of 1.8. For our tests we used a calibration station and also went outside in the city to test out the Greyjoy 35 and the Atlas Orion 32. We realized quickly that the Atlas Orion was pretty hard to get focus at T2. You really could not tell, even with focus peaking, if the shot was in focus or not. Nevertheless, when we looked at the footage in DaVinci Resolve, everything was well in focus. With the 35mm Greyjoy lens, it was much easier to focus and the image was much sharper. But on the other hand, the image you will get from the Atlas Orion looks and feels more authentic. However, this is an aesthetic preference. The focus breathing on the Greyjoy on all aperture levels is not that strong and almost the same. On T22 it was more noticeable because the image was a little bit more in focus. On the other side, the Atlas Orion, you can definitely see breathing. On this test we compensate the exposure with the shutter speed because we didn't want to use an ND for our tests. You will notice the difference on the focal length. You get a little bit more in the frame with the Atlas, like on this shot. You can see the door of the church on the left, and on the right side you can see a little bit of the alley. Just a quick reminder, you are probably never going to use footage like this with such big black bars. Normally you will punch in to receive the right 2.39:1 aspect ratio, also called CinemaScope. The distortion on the face close up is very similar on both lenses. The only big difference you will notice on the Atlas is that you have much more background blur due to the higher aperture. With the tilting shots here, you can see that the bending on top and bottom is much stronger on the Atlas. It is best noticeable with the horizontal block in the front. We also tested the bokeh on both lenses, and I was really impressed about the beautiful bokeh the Greyjoy generated. But somehow I like the bokeh on the Atlas more. Maybe it's because of the little blue tint it has and the chromatic aberration. But as always, this is my opinion, and everybody has their aesthetic preference. Unfortunately, we didn't have any strong light sources to get any flares from both lenses, but according to Greyjoy, there shouldn't be any strong flares on the lens anyway. To de-squeeze the footage, we used the clip attributes in Resolve to get the right amount, which worked out very well for the Greyjoy 35mm, which has a squeeze factor of 1.8, and the Atlas Orion 32, which has a squeeze factor of 2. We also tested the Blackmagic 6K anamorphic mode, but because the squeeze factor on this mode is fixed on 2 times, it looks distorted with the Greyjoy. I recommend you to record on 6K without a squeeze and use an external monitor to squeeze it there, so you can can compose the shot right. The advantage is that in post you can recompose your shot, whereas when you shoot in the 3.7K anamorphic setting on the Blackmagic, what you see on the camera screen is what you get. Let's talk about the pros and cons of the tested lenses. As I mentioned in the test, to get good focus on the Atlas, you really need a control monitor or a larger screen to tell if you are in focus. Also, the Atlas is much heavier with 4.6 pounds or 2.08 kilograms compared to the Greyjoy with 2.62 pounds or 1.19 kilograms. On the Atlas, the scaling on the focus wheel is either metric or imperial. On the 35mm Greyjoy, both systems are visible, which is an improvement from the Greyjoy 50mm, which only displays one like the Atlas. When the footage comes raw out of the camera, I really like the look of the Atlas. The bokeh looks nicer, and overall the look is more organic and goes more into the direction of a Cooke anamorphic. Don't get me wrong, the Cooke anamorphic is a class of its own. However, what makes the Greyjoy 35mm attractive is the price of the lens for what you get in return. Nevertheless, it is always a matter of taste. If you like a much clearer look from the Greyjoy or the organic look from the Atlas. If you want to learn more about anamorphic lenses, I really recommend you to check out the channel Anamorphic on a Budget. Tito really goes into detail and got everything you need to know about anamorphic lenses. Alternatives to the Greyjoy 35mm are the Siri 35mm T2.9, which is available with Canon R and RF, Leica L, Nikon Z, and Sony E-mount, and it has a squeeze factor of 1.6, and the Laowa Nanomorph 35mm T2.4, available also for almost all mounts. It has a squeeze factor of 1.5 and is also available with different flare colors. In my opinion, I would buy the Greyjoy 35mm if you want a nice anamorphic look. If you have a larger budget for your production and like the look of the Atlas more, I would rent it for bigger productions. That's all for this video. If you want us to review the soon to be released Greyjoy 85mm, make sure to let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.